Ever been absolutely convinced you saw something, only for someone else to swear it happened completely differently? It really makes you think about how much our minds are actively shaping the reality we perceive.
It truly does. And that's the fascinating territory we're exploring in this deep dive today. We're looking at hypnosis.
Right.
But maybe not the kind you always see with, like, swinging pocket watches.
Right.
We're really dissecting the core principles that make hypnotic suggestions genuinely effective
Yeah.
and how you can actually tell if they're, having an impact. And the surprising ways understanding all this can shift how we understand influence and, personal
Yeah,
changes.
exactly. So whether you're, say, polishing a presentation and want your message to really land, or you're curious about the subtle art of persuasion, maybe just intrigued by the power of the mind, this deep dive is for you.
Hmm.
We're going to unpack the crucial ingredients for sticky suggestions, discover how to measure their success, explore the transformative power of your own unique perspective.
Which is huge.
Yeah. Lay out a surprisingly simple way to think about change and even see how hypnosis can amplify our everyday experiences. Okay, let's dig in.
So, when we talk about making suggestions more persuasive, the key insight here is this. Our brains are, well, they're kind of like search engines for emotions.
Search engines, okay.
Yeah, tell them what to find: calm, confidence, relaxation, rather than what not to find, like, say, nervousness. Building receptivity in the subconscious starts with rapport and trust.
Right. It's like building that connection first. Things like subtly mirroring someone's body language or matching their tone
Exactly.
and genuinely showing you understand their point of view. Those actions seem to lower those mental guardrails, don't they? Make people more open.
Precisely. That trust acts as an invitation, an invitation to the subconscious. Then, when you're actually crafting the suggestion itself, clarity and specificity are important, but you also want to leave a little room kind of for the individual to make it their own.
That makes sense. You don't want it so specific. It feels, I don't know, foreign. So give me an example.
Okay, something like, you feel a warm, relaxing feeling spreading through your body. It's specific enough to create an image.
Yeah, warm, relaxing.
But warm and relaxing can be experienced slightly differently by everyone, right? And crucially, frame it positively.
Yeah. Focusing on the outcome you want rather than the one you're trying to avoid. So you will feel calm and confident is going to be more effective than, say, you will not feel nervous.
Exactly right. It's like the brain just kind of glosses over the not and grabs onto nervous.
Mm.
Positive framing directs the mind toward the desired state. Then you can layer in repetition, but with a twist. It's not just repeating the same phrase over and over.
More like saying the same core idea in slightly different ways to really let it sink in.
Precisely. Like, you are relaxing more deeply. With each breath, you feel calmer, completely relaxed. Each phrase reinforces the idea of relaxation from a slightly different angle. And to really get the imagination involved, sensory-based language is incredibly powerful. The subconscious, it speaks the language of experience.
Well, like that. Painting a picture with words, essentially.
Exactly. Instead of just saying, relax, you could maybe say, imagine the cool breeze on your skin as you relax by a peaceful lake. That brings in the senses, makes it more vivid.
Yeah, much more engaging.
And then there's the subtle art of pacing and leading.
Okay, let's unpack this. Pacing and leading. What does that mean exactly?
Okay, so first, you pace. That means you sort of mirror or acknowledge their current state.
Like what they're already experiencing.
Right. As you sit here breathing slowly, something like that, then you gently guide them towards the desired state. That's the leading part.
Mm-hmm.
You might begin to feel a sense of calm spreading within you. So you're meeting them where they are before guiding them where you want them to go.
Got it. Meet them, then guide them.
And then we have these subtle things called embedded commands.
Ooh, embedded commands. Sounds a bit sneaky. What are those?
Huh. Well, they're suggestions subtly woven into a larger sentence, like, you don't need to relax completely right now, but you might notice yourself doing so effortlessly.
So the key part is emphasized slightly.
Exactly. By context or maybe a slight shift in your voice, it plants the suggestion. And finally, your own authority and confidence in delivery. That plays a massive role.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, if you sound unsure, why should anyone else be convinced? Hesitation breeds doubt, right?
Absolutely. A confident delivery reinforces that trust we talked about. So all these elements, rapport, clear, positive language, varied repetition, sensory details, pacing and leading, embedded commands, and confident delivery, they all work together.
How so?
They align with how the subconscious mind processes information through trust, vivid imagery, and, well, repetition.
Fascinating. So, okay, you put these persuasive suggestions out there. How do you know if they've actually landed? How do you, measure the success?
That's a great question. And effectiveness can be assessed through both what you can observe and what the person actually tells you. We look for physiological and behavioral indicators.
Like what exactly? Are we talking about, someone falling asleep?
Not necessarily full-blown sleep, no. But you might notice their breathing slowing down, becoming more regular.
Okay.
The muscles in their face relaxing, maybe their jaw slackening slightly, or even slight twitches in their hands or eyelids.
Really? Twitches?
Yeah, tiny ones. They can be signs of deep relaxation or subconscious processing. Behaviorally, you might see them respond directly to a suggestion. The classic example is an ideomotor response.
Okay, break that down for me. Ideomotor. Sounds a bit technical.
Think of that gut feeling or a sudden unconscious urge. Ideomotor responses are similar, just triggered by a suggestion.
Ah.
It just means unconscious muscle movements. So if you say, your arm feels light and begins to float upwards, and their arm starts to rise seemingly on its own.
Without them trying to lift it.
Exactly. That's a strong indicator the suggestion is taking hold. You might also notice their eyes moving rapidly under closed eyelids REM, like in sleep, which can suggest they're engaged in internal processing or visualization. And even subtle changes in skin tone, like a slight flushing or paleness, can reflect an emotional or sensory response.
So it's a combination of these little physical cues. But what about what the person themselves experiences? That seems pretty important too.
Absolutely crucial, yeah. That's where subjective feedback and post-hypnotic responses come in.
Okay.
After a session, you'd ask them about their experience. What did you notice when I suggested you were feeling relaxed? You listen for vivid, detailed descriptions. Those often indicate a deeper level of engagement.
Right. If they just say, it was okay, maybe it didn't land as deeply.
Exactly. And then there are post-hypnotic suggestions.
Ah, those are the ones that are meant to kick in later, right? After the session.
Exactly. For instance, you might suggest, every time you hear this gentle chime sound, you'll feel a wave of confidence. Then, later, you make that sound and observe their reaction. Do they visibly straighten up? Does their expression change? Maybe they even say, wow, I suddenly feel really confident. All of those responses help you gauge the effectiveness. Really, the most robust evaluation comes from combining these methods. The physical cues give you real-time evidence, while the subjective feedback validates whether the suggestion has truly been internalized, made part of their experience.
This is all so much more nuanced than I first thought, and it really highlights how personal the experience is, which I guess brings us to this idea of your unique perspective and how it shapes everything.
Yeah.
How does understanding that make you a better communicator, I guess, and specifically someone using these kinds of suggestions?
Well, what's fascinating here is that your individual way of interpreting reality, it acts as a filter for every single experience you have.
Like a lens.
Precisely. It's the lens through which you perceive and make sense of the world. Understanding this fundamental truth dramatically enhances your ability to guide others toward new realities, new possibilities.
So my own quirks and biases aren't just things to be aware of for myself. They actually influence how I understand and interact with others.
Yeah.
It's not just about me.
Exactly right. Think of reality not as some fixed, objective thing out there,
Yeah.
but as a construct. It's shaped by your unique tapestry of beliefs, memories, cultural conditioning, everything. No two people, even in the exact same situation, will experience it identically. Recognizing this subjectivity is really the first step.
How so? How does recognizing that make you more effective? Give me an example.
Okay, well, let's say you use the suggestion you feel peaceful. Simple enough, right? But for someone who loves the ocean, peaceful might conjure up images of gentle waves and warm sand. But for someone else, maybe someone who finds solace in the mountains, it might evoke a quiet forest, crisp air.
Ah, so the same word triggers totally different internal experiences.
Exactly. Understanding that allows you to tailor your language, maybe even ask beforehand, like we mentioned.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, you acknowledge that peaceful or relaxed looks and feels different to different people.
Precisely. And it goes beyond just word choice. Recognizing the flexibility in how we frame experiences allows you to help others reframe their own, that anxiety they're feeling.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a negative thing you have to get rid of. You could potentially reframe it as, say, energy waiting to be channeled. That shift in perspective can be incredibly powerful.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. So appreciating this subjectivity not only helps with the words you choose, but it also fosters empathy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When you appreciate that someone else's inner world is just as valid and unique as your own, you naturally become more empathetic. Before a session, simply asking, "What does relaxation mean to you?" can give you invaluable insight.
Hmm?
And understanding that beliefs actively shape reality builds your confidence in suggesting new, more empowering beliefs.
Because you realize that their current reality isn't fixed either. It's also a construct, just like the new one you might suggest.
Exactly. So, suggesting something like, "You can see this challenge as an opportunity," isn't just wishful thinking. It's tapping into the brain's remarkable ability to adopt new perspectives.
Right.
Ultimately, this awareness makes you far more effective because it hones your ability to sort of step into someone else's reality, align with their worldview, and gently guide them toward transformative experiences that resonate with them on a deep, personal level.
Okay, so we know how to make suggestions more persuasive, how to gauge if they're working, the importance of individual perspective. Now, you mentioned a simple change algorithm. That sounds intriguing. Lay it on us.
Yeah, this algorithm provides a structured yet flexible process for helping someone shift their experience of reality. It involves 6 key steps. Step 1, establish a baseline.
Okay, like taking stock of where they are right now. What's the starting point?
Precisely. You identify their current state, whether it's through observation or just asking them, "How are you feeling right now?" Gives you that starting point. Are they anxious, unmotivated, feeling stuck?
Got it. Baseline first. Step 2.
Step 2 is to induce trance.
Okay, that's the classic going under part, right? Getting them relaxed.
Yes, essentially, but it's more about bypassing the critical analytical part of the mind to access the subconscious more directly.
Right.
This can be done through various relaxation techniques, guided imagery, progressive muscle relaxation. A simple phrase might be, "With each breath, allow your body to become even calmer."
Okay, transinduction. Step 3.
Step 3 is crucial. Reframe the present state.
So taking that initial feeling from the baseline and offering a new way to look at it.
Exactly. This helps to reduce resistance to change. So if they started by saying they felt tense, you might reframe that by saying something like, "That tension you're feeling is simply energy ready to be redirected."
Okay, neat trick. Reframe. What's step 4?
Step 4 is where you introduce the desired change by suggesting a new reality.
Right. This is where those vivid, sensory-rich suggestions we talked about come back in.
Absolutely. You paint a picture of the desired state. Imagine a warm golden light filling you with confidence and clarity, or whatever fits the goal.
Suggest the new reality. Okay, step 5.
Step 5 is all about anchoring the change.
Anchoring, like dropping a mental anchor so they can find that feeling again.
Exactly like that. You associate the new desired state with a specific trigger, could be physical or mental. A common one is having them press their thumb and forefinger together while they're really experiencing that feeling of confidence, for instance.
Uh-huh.
You then reinforce it by saying something like, "Whenever you bring these fingers together, that confidence returns instantly."
Creates a shortcut back to the state. Clever. And the final step, step 6.
Step 6 is to test and reinforce.
So you actually check if the anchor works.
Yes. After the main part of the session, maybe as they're coming back to full alertness, you might ask them to use their anchor and describe how they feel. If the desired feeling returns, the anchor is effective.
And if not,
Then you might need to strengthen it, or perhaps reinforce the original suggestion in future sessions. This whole algorithm works because it systematically guides the person from their current reality to a new one,
right.
using trance to minimize resistance and anchors to help sustain the change outside the session.
That sounds surprisingly straightforward when you lay it out like that.
Yeah.
So if hypnosis can shift someone's reality like this, it must have some pretty broad applications, right? You mentioned using it to enhance everyday experiences. How does that work?
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting aspects, I think. Hypnosis acts like an amplifier for our experiences.
An amplifier.
Yes, by sharpening focus, engaging the subconscious mind more deeply, and heightening the vividness of our senses. Take sensory perception, for example.
How can hypnosis make what I'm feeling, like, more intense or different?
Well, in areas like pain management, Suggestions can genuinely alter your perception of that sensation. Instead of focusing on pain, you might focus intensely on a suggestion like you feel a cool, soothing sensation where discomfort once was.
Replacing or transforming the sensation.
Exactly. It reframes and intensifies that new sensory input. It works similarly with emotional amplification.
So you can actually dial up your joy or calm through hypnosis.
That sounds amazing.
Precisely. If you're recalling a happy memory under hypnosis, suggestions like, as you recall that happy memory, allow that warmth to intensify and fill you completely, can deepen your emotional response, making the feeling much more profound, more real.
Wow. Okay, what else?
It's also incredibly useful for behavioral reinforcement.
Like strengthening good habits or skills.
Exactly. For an athlete, you might suggest, every practice feels effortless, and your movements become sharper, more precise. This can strengthen their focus and commitment during training. It can even enhance memory.
Help you remember things better. Or differently. Both, potentially. By making the memory recall more vivid, perhaps accessing details you'd forgotten. Or it can help you reframe past experiences. Like, as you revisit this memory, notice new details that bring you a sense of peace.
Changing the emotional connection to the past.
Exactly. And then there's immersive visualization.
Like mentally rehearsing something, but making it feel really real.
You got it. If you're preparing for a public speech, say under hypnosis, you can create a very vivid, very real mental simulation. See yourself speaking confidently, hear the audience applauding enthusiastically, feel the excitement and energy in your chest.
Yeah, I can see how that would build confidence.
By focusing the mind and minimizing distractions, hypnosis essentially makes any sensory, emotional, or cognitive experience feel more intense, more impactful, and ultimately more real to the individual experiencing it.
So these hypnotic realities you keep mentioning, why are they so powerful in creating lasting change? What's the mechanism?
Their power really stems from the brain's remarkable ability, and maybe its Achilles heel, depending how you look at it, to construct its own version of reality based on what it believes and vividly imagines.
Right, that difficulty distinguishing imagination from reality again.
Exactly. This ability is the key to profound shifts in both perception and behavior. Thoughts, especially vividly imagined thoughts fueled by belief, can genuinely become things in our experience.
Okay, so the brain can't always tell the difference. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But why does that translate to such powerful change? What's going on under the hood?
Well, several factors contribute. Firstly, remember the subconscious mind is the primary driver of most of our behaviors, our habits, our emotions.
Right, the autopilot.
Exactly. Hypnotic suggestions bypass the conscious analytical mind, the gatekeeper, and directly influence this deeper level, overcoming a lot of potential resistance. Secondly, the brain is neuroplastic. It changes based on experience.
It can rewire itself.
Precisely. Just as muscles grow stronger with exercise, our brain connections strengthen with new beliefs and experiences, including those created vividly through hypnosis. A hypnotic reality like you are confident can literally start to rewire neural pathways over time.
Wow.
Thirdly, the immersive and vivid nature of hypnotic states enhances sensory and emotional engagement, making these suggested realities feel incredibly real, almost indistinguishable from physical experiences sometimes.
So it feels more true.
Yes. And finally, hypnotic realities can foster self-fulfilling beliefs.
Like if you believe you can do something, you're more likely to try, maybe succeed, which then reinforces the belief. That cycle.
Exactly. A suggested reality like you attract success can subtly shift your actions and perceptions. You might start noticing opportunities you missed before. You might take actions you wouldn't have otherwise, which then leads to results that confirm the original suggestion.
So how do you actually create these transformative hypnotic realities? What's the recipe, so to speak?
Good question. The first ingredient is definitely vivid imagery. Use detailed, multisensory suggestions. Don't just say, feel confident. Maybe say, imagine yourself standing tall, your voice steady and clear, feeling a sense of certainty as others nod in agreement.
Make it rich, make it sensory.
Exactly. The more real it feels, the more impactful it is. Secondly, try to align the suggested reality with the person's core values and goals. If someone values creativity, suggesting your mind flows effortlessly with endless creative ideas will resonate more deeply than a generic suggestion.
Make it personally meaningful.
Right. Reinforcement through repetition is also crucial. Repeated exposure strengthens the impact. This could involve multiple sessions, self-hypnosis practice, or using those post-hypnotic triggers or anchors we talked about.
Keep watering the seed.
Good
Oh,
analogy.
wait.
Yes. And finally, encourage ownership of the change. Suggest that the new reality originates from within them. Instead of implying you are giving them confidence, phrase it like, you are discovering this deep well of confidence that has always been within you.
So it feels like their own power.
Precisely. Creating these kinds of hypnotic realities effectively unlocks transformative potential by reshaping self-perception, tapping into hidden abilities, and aligning actions with desired outcomes.
This is getting deep. It makes me think about how we process different kinds of information. How does the mind respond to, say, a direct physical sensation versus a really abstract idea like freedom or success? And what happens when you combine them in hypnosis?
It's a very insightful question. And you're right, the mind processes them differently, but combining them during hypnosis creates a particularly powerful kind of holistic effect.
Okay.
Sensory experiences, touch, sight, sound, they trigger an immediate, almost visceral response. Think about the suggestion. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. This directly activates your sensory cortices, grounds you in the moment, makes the experience feel very tangible, very real.
It's an immediate, almost automatic physical response.
Exactly. Abstract concepts, on the other hand, like confidence or freedom or peace, engage our cognitive and emotional centers more. Their meaning is often deeply personal, linked to our individual beliefs, values, past experiences.
Right.
So when you suggest you possess an unwavering sense of confidence, the mind actively works to interpret and internalize that concept based on its own unique understanding of what confidence means.
So it's more of an internal interpretation process for those abstract ideas.
Yeah.
Less automatic.
Precisely. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When you combine the two, that's where the magic often happens. You get a synergistic effect.
Synergy. How so?
Well, pairing a concrete sensory detail with an abstract idea creates a much more vivid and emotionally resonant experience. It makes the abstract feel more concrete.
Give me an example of that synergy in action.
Okay, how about, as you feel a warm, comforting glow spreading in your chest, you know this is your confidence strengthening, growing more solid. See?
Yeah. The tangible sensation, the warm glow, is directly linked to the abstract idea, confidence. Makes it feel more real, more believable.
Exactly. And sensory suggestions can also help bypass the critical mind. By engaging the senses, you can kind of distract the conscious, analytical part of the brain.
Keep it busy.
Yeah, keep it busy, allowing the abstract suggestions to slip more easily into the subconscious. Like, hear the gentle sound of the waves washing onto the shore as you embrace a feeling of complete freedom. The sound engages the senses while you plant the concept of freedom.
Clever.
And this combination also makes the suggestions far more memorable.
Because it's hitting you on multiple levels, sensory and conceptual.
Exactly. If someone feels the cool breeze of calmness while hearing the suggestion you are at peace, they are much more likely to recall and internalize that state later on. The result is a deeply immersive experience that feels both real and meaningful, which significantly enhances the hypnotic effect and promotes more lasting change.
Okay, this is all incredibly useful. Could you maybe give us a quick demonstration, like how you might use suggestions specifically to grab someone's attention and really focus them at the start?
Absolutely. Happy to. Here's a sample of how you might begin focusing on drawing attention inward. Just take a moment now to settle comfortably. Maybe notice the rhythm of your own breathing, slow and steady. And as you listen to my voice, you might begin to feel the gentle curiosity arising. Perhaps a sense that each word is guiding you towards an even calmer, more focused state of awareness. Imagine, if you like, a soft golden light surrounding you, warm and inviting. And with each word I speak, perhaps that light grows just a little brighter, effortlessly drawing your attention deeper inside. You don't even need to try. Just allow your mind to follow naturally, maybe even eager to discover what comes next.
Wow, that already feels quite focusing just listening to you say it. What are the key techniques you're using there to create that effect?
Well, several things are at play simultaneously. First, the tone of voice is crucial, aiming for calm, rhythmic, but with slight variations in pitch to maintain interest without being jarring.
Right, not monotone.
Exactly. Then, we're pacing the subject's current verifiable experience. Notice your breath, which builds rapport and gently directs their focus inward.
Starting where they are.
Yes. Using sensory vividness like the golden light, really engages their imagination and gives the mind something tangible, albeit internal, to focus on.
Uh-huh.
We're also using implied focus with phrases like, your mind follows naturally, which subtly suggests focus without being a direct command like, focus now, which might trigger
Or
resistance.
permissive.
Right. And finally, creating a sense of curiosity and anticipation with phrases like eager to discover keeps the listener engaged, wanting to hear more, wondering what peaceful state might unfold. Layering these elements creates a kind of gentle magnetic pull that naturally draws their attention inward and prepares them for deeper suggestions.
That makes perfect sense. Now, what about the opposite side of that coin? How do you avoid triggering that critical part of the brain, the part that might analyze, question, or even reject the suggestions you're giving?
Yes, avoiding the critical faculty. That's key to effective suggestion. One of the most common and effective ways is to use indirect suggestions.
Instead of direct commands.
Exactly. Instead of, you are relaxed, you might say, you might notice yourself beginning to feel some calm. Or perhaps a sense of relaxation can start to develop. This permissive language is much less likely to be met with internal argument or resistance.
Seems gentler.
It is. We also go back to the idea of pacing and leading that we discussed. By mirroring their current experience first, as you sit here feeling the chair beneath you, before introducing new ideas you can begin to feel more comfortable, you build agreement and rapport.
Builds trust along the way.
Precisely. Using somewhat vague and ambiguous language can also be surprisingly effective. Things like nominalizations using nouns like calm, strength, ease instead of verbs or adjectives.
Why does that work?
Because it allows the listener subconscious to fill in the blanks with their own personal understanding of what calm or strength feels like. An open-ended suggestion like, you may experience a pleasant sensation in some way, lets them create an experience that resonates personally, making it harder to reject.
Because it's their interpretation.
Exactly. You can also distract the conscious mind while planting suggestions. Engage their imagination with vivid imagery or a simple mental task. Imagine you are walking slowly down a path in a beautiful forest, noticing every leaf, every sound, while subtly layering in your suggestions about relaxation or confidence.
Keep the conscious mind busy elsewhere.
Right. It's also generally important to avoid absolutes. Phrases like you must or you will always can raise defenses. Using you can, you may, perhaps you'll find, offers more freedom and invites cooperation rather than demanding it. And, as we keep saying, maintaining strong rapport is absolutely crucial throughout. A good connection built on trust and empathy significantly reduces skepticism. Showing you understand and aligning with their overall worldview helps suggestions land more smoothly. So keeping suggestions subtle, engaging, permissive, and aligned with their current experience minimizes that critical interference and really enhances their receptivity.
So, okay, you're putting these subtle, permissive suggestions out there. You're avoiding triggering the critical mind.
Yeah.
What are some of the telltale signs that someone is actually going deeper, shifting into that internal experience you're aiming for? What should you be looking for?
Yeah, there are several cues, often quite subtle, that indicate a shift towards a deeper internal focus. Physically, you might notice their breathing becoming slower, deeper, more regular.
Okay, the breathing changes.
The muscles in their face might relax noticeably, the brow smooths out, the jaw might slacken slightly, their limbs might appear more limp or heavy, really settled.
Signs of physical relaxation.
Definitely. Eye movements can also be indicative, even with closed eyes. You might see that rapid eye movement, REM, flickering under the eyelids.
Like in dream sleep.
Exactly, suggesting internal visualization or processing. Or if their eyes happen to be open in a lighter trance, you might see a fixed, unblinking gaze, kind of looking through things rather than at them. That signals internal focus.
Interesting. What else?
You might also see a reduced responsiveness to external stimuli. If they seem less aware of background noises or movements around them, maybe they don't startle at a sudden sound. That's a good sign they're immersed in their inner world.
Tuning out the external.
Right. Subtle twitches or involuntary muscle movements, those ideomotor responses we mentioned earlier, like a finger moving slightly or a slight nod or head tilt in response to a suggestion, also suggest subconscious processing is happening. Changes in skin tone can occur too. Maybe a slight flushing as they relax or experience warmth, or maybe paleness if they're accessing a different kind of internal state. Even subtle perspiration changes.
The body reflecting the inner state.
Precisely. If they happen to speak during the trance, their voice might become softer, slower, perhaps more monotone, or have a different cadence than usual, which is often characteristic of a trance state. And finally, a common one reported after the session is experiencing time distortion.
Where time felt like it passed really quickly or really slowly.
Exactly. They might say, wow, I thought only 5 minutes passed, but it's been half an hour. That indicates a deep dive into their internal experience. All of these cues, taken together, help confirm that they are turning their attention inward and becoming more receptive to the suggestions being offered.
It all seems to come back to this fascinating connection between the imagined world inside
Yeah.
and the perceived reality outside, doesn't it? How does that fundamental link between our inner world and external reality really play into the power of these persuasive suggestions?
That connection is absolutely central. It lies in that fascinating quirk of the brain we keep touching on. Its difficulty, at certain levels, in distinguishing vividly imagined experiences from physically real ones.
The brain simulator.
Yeah, you could call it that. This is the fundamental principle that persuasive suggestions leverage. When you vividly imagine tasting a sour lemon, for instance, the same brain regions involved in actually tasting a lemon, like the gustatory cortex, show increased activity.
So the brain rehearses the experience.
Exactly. Persuasive suggestions tap into these shared neural pathways by creating vivid mental simulations that feel incredibly real to the individual. Furthermore, our beliefs, what we hold to be true, have a profound impact on our perceived reality. If a suggestion manages to convince the subconscious mind, it essentially becomes part of the subject's belief system.
And therefore part of their perceived reality.
Precisely. So if I come to believe through suggestion I'm confident, I'll likely start to act more confidently, change my posture, my tone of voice, my willingness to speak up. My behavior aligns with the belief.
Which then reinforces the belief.
Exactly. And suggestions that resonate with a person's existing beliefs or positive past experiences tend to be more persuasive because they feel inherently true. They tap into existing neural pathways. Saying, you've always had this inner strength, you just need to access it, is often more powerful than you will suddenly become strong.
Next to what's already there.
Right. Finally, when suggestions are linked to emotions, feel the deep joy of achieving this goal, they create an even stronger sense of reality because emotions act as powerful anchors for our experiences and memory. Things we feel strongly about feel more real.
Makes sense.
So by crafting suggestions that are both, let's say, logically plausible within their worldview and emotionally resonant, you can effectively blur that line between suggestion and reality, making the suggestion just as potent, potentially, as an actual lived experience.
And that blurring of the lines, that feeling of the suggestion being real,
Hmm.
that's how a persuasive suggestion can actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
Yeah, precisely. It's a fascinating feedback loop. A persuasive suggestion, once accepted by the subconscious, plants a seed of belief. Let's take the suggestion again. You are capable of achieving your goals.
Okay.
This instills a belief, maybe tentative at first, in the person's ability to succeed. This belief then directly influences their behavior. They might become more proactive, maybe take steps they were hesitant to take before, persevere through challenges because they genuinely believe on some level they can succeed.
So the belief changes the actions.
Yes. And this shift in behavior then alters how they perceive events around them. Successes, even small ones, are seen as confirmation of their capability, further strengthening the initial suggestion. Setbacks might be viewed as temporary obstacles or learning opportunities rather than proof of failure.
Changes the interpretation.
Exactly. Furthermore, these actions, now driven by the new belief, often elicit different responses from the environment, from other people. If someone acts more confidently, they might receive praise, encouragement, or new opportunities, which provides external validation and reinforces the belief even more.
So it becomes a reinforcing cycle. Belief, action, perception, feedback, stronger belief.
You've got it. That's the self-fulfilling prophecy cycle in action. Each success, internally perceived or externally validated, strengthens the underlying belief, making the original suggestion become, quite literally, their reality. A classic example is suggesting something like, you naturally attract positive opportunities.
How would that play out?
Well, someone holding that belief might become more open and aware, noticing possibilities they might have previously overlooked. They might network more effectively, project more positivity, and ultimately encounter and seize opportunities that align with the suggestion, thus proving it true to themselves.
It changes what they filter for.
Exactly. The key, of course, is delivering these suggestions with conviction and ensuring they resonate with the individual's values and desires for them to truly take root and blossom into reality.
So it really boils down to using the right kind of language, doesn't it? To tap into this power of belief and imagination. What are some simple core language skills we can use to evoke just about any experience we want during hypnosis?
Yeah, mastering a few fundamental language techniques can dramatically enhance your ability to evoke almost any desired experience. Start with active sensory verbs. Consciously use verbs that engage the senses like see, feel, hear, notice, imagine.
Be specific about the sense.
Right, like hear the gentle rhythm of calm within you. Then layer in descriptive adjectives to make your suggestions more immersive. Use vivid modifiers like warm, soothing, vibrant, crystal clear. For instance, feel a warm golden glow of confidence spreading through you.
Add richness.
Exactly. Employ pacing language phrases like even more, deeper and deeper, with each passing moment to imply a progressive deepening or intensification of the experience. With every breath, you feel even more relaxed.
With just ongoing change.
Yes. Don't forget the power of permissive language we discussed, using words like you might, you can, perhaps, allow yourself to. This reduces resistance. You may begin to notice a growing sense of peace.
Gentler approach.
Metaphors and similes can create powerful connections by comparing the desired experience to something familiar and positive. Your mind is becoming like a calm, clear lake, smooth and reflective.
Creates an image.
And those embedded commands we talked about, subtly hiding suggestions within sentences. You don't need to feel completely peaceful right now, but you can notice that calmness growing naturally. And finally, utilize nominalizations.
Turning processes into nouns again, like relaxation instead of relaxing.
Exactly, using abstract nouns like calm, strength, joy, release. They allow the listener to create their own personalized understanding and experience of that concept. Allow that sense of strength to flow through you. These techniques are incredibly versatile and can be mixed and matched, adapted to elicit a huge range of emotional, sensory, and cognitive states.
And to make those suggestions even more potent, almost irresistible, you mentioned using artfully vague sensory descriptions. How does being vague actually make it more powerful? Seems counterintuitive.
It does seem counterintuitive at first glance, doesn't it? But artfully vague sensory descriptions are powerful precisely because they tap into the subconscious mind's natural tendency to fill in the details. It makes the experience intensely personal.
So the vagueness invites participation.
Exactly. It invites the listener's own subconscious to co-create the experience, making it perfectly tailored to them, and therefore more compelling and harder to resist. Instead of a super specific instruction like, feel the warm, soft sand between your toes on a sunny beach.
Which might not resonate if they hate beaches.
Right. You might say something much broader, like, just begin to notice a pleasant sensation developing somewhere in your body. This allows the individual to connect with whatever feeling feels pleasant to them right now.
Okay, what about location?
Same principle. Instead of specifying where a sensation is, feel warmth in your hands, you might say, you might begin to feel a sense of warmth or perhaps coolness developing somewhere within you. Their own mind will naturally assign a location that feels right or is already happening.
Let their body tell them.
Yeah. Open-ended imagery works similarly. Instead of detailing a specific forest scene, offer a vague invitation. Imagine being in a place where you feel completely safe and at ease. The individual then spontaneously creates an environment that feels perfectly safe and comfortable for them.
Their own personal sanctuary.
Exactly. The same applies to emotions. Instead of a specific, potentially loaded emotion like happiness, use broader, more ambiguous terms like a sense of comfort, a feeling of lightness, or a growing sense of well-being. This allows for their own interpretation based on their current state and needs.
Leaves room for nuance.
Right. You can also layer vague descriptions with more specific anchors or processes. As you continue to experience that pleasant sensation developing somewhere in your body, just notice how it seems to strengthen a little more with each easy breath you take. It links the non-specific feeling to a tangible action.
Okay.
And crucially, invite exploration. Encourage the person to actively engage with the vague suggestion. You might just discover a particular feeling or perhaps an image that feels exactly right for you in this moment.
Puts them in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The overarching principle is to offer just enough of a framework, a gentle suggestion for the listener's own subconscious to create a vivid, rich, and deeply personal experience. It feels inherently right and therefore almost irresistible because it's being shaped moment by moment by their own inner world.
That's a really powerful concept, using vagueness to increase personal relevance and reduce resistance.
So just to kind of wrap up our depth dive today, You've now got, hopefully, a much clearer understanding of the core elements that make hypnotic suggestions truly persuasive. We've looked at practical methods for gauging their effectiveness, watching for those subtle shifts in physiology and behavior, listening to their feedback.
Yeah.
And we've really explored the profound impact of recognizing your own individual perspective and how that shapes not just your reality, but how you interact with others.
Right, and that simple change algorithm, baseline, trance, reframe, suggest, anchor, test, seems like a useful framework.
Definitely. And the remarkable potential of hypnosis to amplify almost any experience, all stemming from this understanding of how the mind constructs its own unique realities based on belief and imagination.
And for you, our listener, this isn't just, abstract theory or interesting concepts. This knowledge can genuinely be a powerful tool in your own life. Whether you're looking to communicate more effectively, maybe navigate personal growth, or simply gain a deeper appreciation for the incredible capabilities of your own mind.
Yeah, it really opens up possibilities, which maybe leads to an important question for you to consider moving forward. Knowing how powerfully your beliefs and focus shape your perceived reality, what's one belief, perhaps, or one perspective you might choose to consciously cultivate more deliberately from here on out?
Hmm, that's a great takeaway question.
Perhaps exploring that will be a fascinating deep dive for you on your own. And who knows, maybe we'll dig into some related areas in future deep dives, especially if we hear from you about what you'd find useful.